Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 819, 819, June the 23rd, 2019, Sunday. Happy Sunday morning everyone. Okay, well, let's not forget, I should not forget. Last week it was I who forgot, but I won't forget today that this is the day that we vote for Dumbass of the Week. Make sure to put your pick for Dumbass of the Week into the comments section of this video. Yes, that's right, this video. And if you see Hey Hey has made a post on here, the sub who goes by the handle Hey Hey, and you see whatever his vote is, someone copy it for me. Little inside joke there. Maybe some of you are onto that. I don't know. We're trying to find out what's happening to his comments, to his votes for Dumbass of the Week. It appears that I see every one of his posts, or her post, I don't know if it's a he or a she. I see all of Hey Hey's posts. The only ones that don't seem to appear are his votes for Dumbass of the Week. So, we're trying to solve that particular crime. Alrighty, so get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week. A lot of very good candidates this week. It'll be another tough competition, I'm sure, and I'll be looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and get to the news of the day and some other thoughts. Well, now it's looking more and more, just like many of us suspected, that this stuff going on with Iran was very likely a plot to draw Trump in and forcing him to hit the Iranians, in which case there's probably a more developed plot beyond that, but I think the idea was initially to get Trump to hit the Iranians. What would have come after that, I'm not exactly sure, but there's reason to believe that now. And there's a video that popped up, and I don't know how many of you saw it, but it's a video taken of Madam Botox, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck the Cuck Schumer right after they left the meeting with Trump at the White House, after he called them and leaders of the House and Senate in to discuss the issue with them of the Iranians shooting down that drone. So after they walk out of the White House in this meeting, you see Nancy and Chuck go out to this SUV, and you see them high-fiving and celebrating. Now, why would Nancy and Chuck be so happy and so exuberant, high-fiving and celebrating after just learning that the Iranians shot down a drone and that we may be forced to take some sort of military action? That should be not a moment for high-fiving and celebrating. Unless, of course, you think that it's going to lead President Trump into making the decision to launch a military strike. In which case, you might be celebrating if you were Nancy and Chuck and you knew that that was a plot to draw the president in to something that he would not be able to stop once he set it into motion. As we have seen this happen before. It happened to JFK. It happened to LBJ in Vietnam. More and more evidence that there was a sinister plot at play, which just proves that the deep state has not stopped in their efforts to take Trump out. And more evidence that the demo commies are deeply involved and likely have been from the start in the plot. We'll keep watching, but it appears once again that Trump has outsmarted the deep state. Well done, Mr. President. That's why I voted for you. Exactly that right there. Number one reason I voted for Trump. Sick and tired of counterinsurgency wars and being lied into wars. Whether it was World War I, lied into the war. World War II, pretty much lied into that war. Vietnam, Korea, the Spanish-American War, 9/11, Iraq, Afghanistan, the whole 9 yards. Lies, all lies. All military interventions, the prerequisites of which were all based on lies. That's why I voted for Trump. Well, speaking of the demo commies, how about we check in on the field? because we're only 6 days away from the first debate. And I can assure you, friends, if you have not cleared your schedule for June the 29th, you might want to do so, because there's no movie or no entertainment you can possibly seek on that evening that will be better than the first Demo-Commie debate. I recommend whatever sort of beverages you enjoy, maybe a bucket of popcorn, and if we're lucky, Trump will be narrating on his own. You'll need 2 windows open to view that event. One to watch the Demo-Commies, and the other to watch Trump's Twitter feed. Now, let's check in with the Demo-Commies. Let's see. Well, we have de Blasio. Yes, de Blasio. He's down in South Carolina. Not exactly sure why he's in South Carolina, because he's never going to make it to South Carolina. I'm not sure where that falls in the Democrat, but it's usually the 3rd debate on the Republican side. I assume the same on the Democrat side this time around. So I don't think he's going to make it past Iowa and New Hampshire. But for some reason, de Blasio is down in South Carolina. Now, this dude is so unpopular that even the hardcore left-wingers in New York hate him. His popularity is so low in New York that he couldn't even get elected there if he ran right now. But he's down in South Carolina. Yeah, I'm sure those folks down in South Carolina just love a New York hardcore progressive commie like de Blasio down in South Carolina. Yes, and it looks like his grand total of people who showed up to his event looks like it was only 15. 15! Damn, even Swalwell was able to get 18. 15 people. You gotta be kidding me. I could draw more than 15 people. I could draw probably 150. Just people who know me, who would probably support me if I ran for some crazy position in government, which I would never do. So there you go. Next, we have the wild-eyed commie, Ocasio-Cortez. She is not running, of course, but she is a kingmaker. She's going to endorse somebody at some point. And I don't know if there's anybody far left enough to satisfy her. We'll have to see. She'll ultimately endorse the nominee, but I'm pretty sure she's not going to endorse Crazy Joe. I don't know about Bernie. Maybe she'll endorse Bernie. But he's male, he's white, he's old. So I'm not so sure about that. And of course, there's a couple issues where she's not on the same page with Bernie. I'm not sure about that. We'll have to see. Is there anybody crazy enough and commie enough for Ocasio-Cortez to endear her endorsement? I don't know. But her latest tweet to her demented disciples is to tell people, her fans, to report ICE sightings and to harbor illegal aliens, that's criminals, in their homes. She's telling people that if you see ICE, report them. Let everybody know they're in the area and tell the illegals to hide, and if you can, help hide them out in your home. Now, I don't know if the wild-eyed commie is aware of this, especially because she's now a member of Congress, but that is actually illegal. That is actually not something you should be doing. Instructing people to violate the law. What if someone does that and they violate the law and they get their door kicked in and they end up in court and they say, well, my congressman told me to do it? Could be a problem. Let's check in on our good buddy Eric Swalwell. Well, we know it was bad when he went out the other day and had an anti-gun rally in front of the NRA and only 18 people showed up. There were more media people there to cover the event than there were Swalwell supporters. But as bad as it is for Swalwell, you know, it really can't get any worse than this. We find out that his parents will not be supporting Swalwell. Not even his parents will be voting for him. Why? Because he says that they're hardcore Reaganites. They're California Reaganites. Eric Swalwell's own parents will not be voting for him. He's riding high at 0%. Hanging in there. He drew 18 people to what should have been a pretty massive rally. I mean, forget even the fact that he's running for president. Just saying you want to have an anti-gun rally in front of the NRA headquarters should have brought some people. I could draw a lot more people than these guys. Whew, my goodness, man. What a freak show. Well, we have Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Alfred E. Newman. His latest escapade occurred in his hometown, where there was recently a shooting. A white cop shot a black suspect, and that suspect died. I believe he died either at the scene or at the hospital. And apparently this suspect was vandalizing a vehicle. He was observed by this cop. The cop approached him. The criminal had a knife. He was told to drop the knife. He didn't drop the knife, and the cop shot him, and now he's dead. Well, this brought out the BLM crowd, the Black Lives Matter crowd. Buttigieg decided to go back home to deal with the situation because he is the mayor there of South Bend, Indiana, where this occurred. At which point he was, I guess you would say, confronted might be the word, confronted by a group of BLM, Black Lives Matter, supporters and activists. And they started getting all over his case. And he breaks out a handwritten statement. Instead of just talking to them, he breaks out a written statement and starts reading from it. Needless to say, they were not enthused. And they were asking him what he was going to do about it. And of course, he's not giving them the answer they want, because what they want to hear is that he's going to have the white cop brought in front of a firing squad and killed immediately. That's the only thing. In fact, that probably wouldn't work. They'd want the entire white police force to be brought in front of a firing squad. So, as Buttigieg is trying to work his way through the process, and you can watch the video, there's one of the activists who's hollering at him about what he's going to do and what he's going to do if he still wants to get their vote, at which point Buttigieg, Alfred E. Newman, says, "I'm not asking for your vote." I'm not asking for your vote. At which point the protester says, "And you're not going to get it either." Okay, so this guy probably couldn't even get reelected. If he loses, I mean, he's going to lose. If he doesn't become the nominee, he'll go back to being mayor. But it looks like to me that he's not going to be mayor for long. I'd say he probably won't even get reelected in his position as mayor in South Bend, Indiana. And that'll hopefully be the last we hear of Alfred E. Newman Buttigieg. Buttigieg or Buttigieg or whatever his damn name is. He should change his name before he ever runs for office again to something like Johnson, Madison, Lincoln, Washington, Jefferson, Adams, something. Let's see, what do we have here? Oh yeah, one last thing. Buttigieg is going to hold a town hall on Sunday, that would be today, to further address the issue. If he's smart, he'll cancel. The only thing you're going to do there, my friend, is open up the floodgates for the crazies to show up, and believe me, they'll show up in force, and you'll be damn sorry you did that. Because they're not really interested in anything you have to say. You're white. You have white privilege, Mr. Buttigieg. White privilege. Therefore, you're not even legitimate enough to even have a comment on anything. You're white. You have white privilege. Therefore, your opinion doesn't matter. You should shut up. That's the party that you're running to represent, Mr. Buttigieg. You deal with them. They're your problem now. You created them. Well, many of you have heard about these emails that were released between conversations between Sean Hannity and Paul Manafort. And in one of those emails, Manafort is telling Hannity that he would have to make up some shit about Trump and Kushner for Mueller to cut him a deal. This should not surprise anyone. We've heard this throughout the entire Mueller investigation. We've heard it from Papadopoulos. We suspect it from Flynn. We suspect it from that these were the tactics being used by Andrew Wiseass, and that they were threatening tactics. You know, either you make up some shit, either you sing or you compose, or you get the book thrown at you. This is why Manafort should now be pardoned. Barr should step in immediately and have Manafort released until this case can be evaluated by an honest if you can find one, an honest person from the Department of Justice to look and see exactly what happened here. We know that some of the evidence used was fraudulent, and that Uncle Bob the Executioner and his wise-ass pitbull, Mr. Weissman, knew that evidence that they used was false, but they used it anyway. They should be the ones facing criminal indictments. Paul Manafort should get a reprieve. He should be immediately released while they look into this and find out what the hell's going on. Tom Fitton, Judicial Watch, still on the job, and they've exposed another of many, 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 many examples of how the media was working with the FBI on the plot to take down Trump. So Tom Fitton is talking about these emails, and there's an email from a New York Times reporter, and this New York Times reporter sends this email to the FBI Public Affairs Chief. Remember him? Michael Cortin. Michael Cortin. He was the one who was involved with Lisa Page in leaking the Andy McCabe story to the Wall Street Journal. It was he who was working with Lisa Page on that particular leak issue. So here we have this New York Times reporter sending an email to Michael Cortin to give him a heads up on a story, which turned out to be fake news. The story alleged that Jared Kushner was meeting with Russians from Alpha Bank, and that Kushner and Flynn set up the meeting previously. So then Cortin sends the story over to Peter's Been Stroking Us and Jonathan Moffa. And Been Stroking Us and Moffa, of course, begin this investigation. Now, 3 days after that, the New York Times writes a story that Kushner was to be questioned by the Senate about his meetings with Russian bankers, and that Kushner was under investigation by the FBI. Of course, we suspect that Kushner had a FISA on him. That still has not been unearthed, but we certainly suspect that that was the case, and this may have been the reason for it. Now, as we look back again at this Iranian situation that happened, there's a lot of people starting to question whether or not there was something more nefarious going on here, especially in light of this video we see of Nancy and Chuck. But we also know a lot of other things that have been going on. Former Obama administration officials meeting, including having secret meetings with the Iranian foreign minister, and in fact having some meetings openly. While the Trump administration is at the UN working with their partners to deal with Iran, at the very same time you have former Obama administration officials right there at the UN rubbing shoulders and elbows and talking to the exact same diplomats that we're supposed to be negotiating against. You talk about blatant in-your-face interference. I mean, imagine that. Imagine the previous president's administration officials basically just elbowing their way into the political affairs of the current administration and trying to obstruct them. I mean, this is unheard of. This would never have happened in any previous administrations, and I just makes me sick that Pompeo and these guys are so weak that they don't call it out. And Kerry should be looked at for violations of probably the Hatch Act and other things. So here we're talking about John F. Kerry, who, by the way, served in Vietnam. So Iran's latest ploy, quite stupid if you ask me. Why would Iran do that? Now, we've since learned that the photo that they produced shows evidence that the drone was flying over their airspace has now turned out to be a fraud. It turns out that that's the exact same photo that they used about 3 years ago in another claim. It's a remanufactured photo and piece of video from 3 or 4 years ago that they just brought out again. I guess they thought we all forgot. I did. I'm glad someone remembered and caught on to it. So now we know that's a fraud. Okay, so what they did was pretty stupid. Why are they doing something like that? Clearly they're getting some advice from someone that's either trying to lure Trump into hitting them, or they're trying to do something else. I'm not exactly sure what. Frustrate the Trump administration, make them look bad, or whatever. Put them in a situation where they make Trump either look weak or force him into war. I don't really know what the end game is here, but there's some sort of plot at hand. So, what ends up happening at this point to the Iranians? Well, it didn't work out. If they were trying to get Trump to hit them, he didn't do it. He's just going to levy more sanctions on them, which is going to hurt them even more. So they actually ended up doing themselves a lot of harm. Yeah, they shot down a $100 million drone, but they're about to get hit with even deeper and deeper sanctions, and they're already really, really hurting. So it didn't work out, so whoever's advice they took, Kerry or some other Obama administration official's advice, whoever advice they took, it's not going to work out well for the Iranians. They're headed for some more pain. So we're asking who put them up to this. Why would they do it? Why would the Iranians do it? Someone had to put them up to this. Is it possible that John F. and Kerry, who by the way served in Vietnam, and other former Obama administration officials are involved in this? We know that Kerry, who by the way served in Vietnam, John F. and Kerry, has been meeting with Iran Foreign Minister Javad Zarif. Kerry has admitted to at least 4 secret meetings with Zarif to talk about the nuclear deal. Did or has John F. and Kerry, who by the way served in Vietnam, has he advised the Iranians on U.S. capabilities? Has he advised the Iranians on our procedures for how we respond to these types of scenarios which are game played? He certainly knows them. Has he been passing that information along? There needs to be an independent grand jury set up to question Kerry and former Obama administration officials about what they have been doing and conducting these meetings, secret and both overt and covert meetings with the Iranians, what they've been talking about, and what information they have discussed and released to the Iranians. We have a Rasmussen poll which shows that 64% of voters believe the FBI knew the dossier was bullshit but used it anyway to investigate Trump. 64% of voters believe the FBI knew the dossier was bogus but used it anyway to investigate Trump. 86% of Republicans are skeptical about the FBI's investigation of Trump. 64% of independents are skeptical about the FBI investigation of Trump, and even 47% of Democrats are skeptical about the FBI investigation of Trump. Maybe that's why that Russian narrative isn't going over so well on the fake news network CNN and the nuts over at PMSNBC. 2/3 of Americans believe the Obama administration's spying on Trump team was illegal. 49% want the FBI investigated. 29% were opposed. My oh my. Numbers are moving in a certain direction. My oh my. I was thinking the other night what it must be like to be a member of Durham's team, working for A.G. Barr and getting to the bottom of the coup. What must that be like? Can you imagine that? How many of you would like to be on Durham's team investigating the Spygate fiasco? Man, I gotta tell you, that would be my dream. It would be my dream to be on the Durham team investigating the Spygate coup plot. And what do you think is going through the minds of A.G. Barr and Durham? They now know at least as much as we know, if not a lot more. What must be going through their minds? Think about what they've discovered. most of it already out in the public domain even before they started. But now, just the things that we know, they have a much deeper knowledge of. Like, we know that there were about 40,000 illegal searches in the FISA database, the 702 query database, by 3 contractors who apparently were appointed by Comey. We believe one of them to be Fusion GPS. We know that because 2 years ago, Judge Collier released her report. That's 40,000 illegal searches. That's 40,000 single individual crimes. Now, we knew about this about 2 years ago, but what we saw was the redacted version. Barr and Durham actually know who those 3 contractors were, and by now they know who they were working for, and by now they know exactly what those queries were in reference to and who they were about. Can you imagine being on the team with Durham and now knowing the answers to these questions? Imagine right now knowing that those query searches, the information from those query searches was likely being relayed right to the top, to the tippy top, Obama himself, via his aides, which would have been Rhodes, Rice, and Jarrett. Likely what was being gathered from those 702 queries is likely being passed to Obama via Jarrett, Rice, and Rhodes, his top 3 national security people, and his personal advisor. Jarrett was his personal sort of advisor, like personal secretary in a way. Rhodes and Rice, his top national security people. They would have been the ones who would have been given the results of those 702 queries. Now, by law, the president must maintain records, presidential records, of anything, any information that will be given to him by these national security officials working for him. So by now, Barr and Durham have probably seen those. So now they know that too. We know that Rice, Rhodes, and Powers were likely the unmaskers. We know that they unmasked over 300 times just in the second half of the year 2016 alone. People on the Trump team, including Flynn, Manafort, Kushner, and likely Trump himself. Now they know who did those unmaskings, exactly how many they were, when they occurred, which is important, and what they may have done with that information, and who they may have shared that information with. Some of that information could have been leaked to the media. Could have been shared with foreign governments. Barr and Durham right now are in discussions with the governments of the UK, Italy, Ukraine, and Australia about the role they played. By now, Barr and Durham know that Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, was using foreign intelligence agencies to plant agent provocateurs into the Trump campaign on his attacking his aides, specifically Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, and Michael Caputo. And we know that the 3 primary provocateurs put into action were Mr. Mifsud, Alexander Down the Hatch Downer, and the Fat Man, Stefan Halper. All 3 probably now being given up. They'll be talking soon, you might say, to Mr. Durham and his investigators. They have a lot to say, and they know a lot of things. They were involved in some pretty nasty and illegal stuff. By now, Barr and Durham have discovered the CIA secret task force, which then was modified into another, more expanded task force before it finally found its way on August 6th into the Obama administration via those secret letters, those for your eyes only letters. And we now know that on August 6th of 2016, before going on vacation to Martha's Vineyard, Obama set up his own, even more secretive task force, being described now as the Fusion Cell. And Durham has now dialed it in. Durham has dialed in the Fusion Cell. He's learning about all the things that they did. He's probably going to be asking a lot of questions. And at some point in his investigation, he's going to have a talk with Barack Hussein Obama. The tippy top. By now, Durham and Barr have been able to figure out the rotten Reverend Clinton and how she used paid assets to create the fake narrative. And the only issue he has to figure out now is, were they in cahoots? Because it's very, very difficult to believe that they were not in cahoots. You had two perfectly almost identical things going on that were running parallel to one another. You had the rotten Reverend Clinton paying Christopher Steele to be the intelligence launderer, to launder the so-called Steele dossier information through the State Department into the FBI, helping to feed the Russian narrative. At the same time, you've got the FBI also paying Steele to produce the exact same information to pump it directly into the FBI. So if we have the rotten Reverend Clinton and we have the FBI both paying the same guy to pump the same information into what would eventually be the same clearinghouse, the same dump place, then obviously we're looking at a parallel operation. Now, is there any evidence that these two were colluding together? Working together? Are we supposed to believe they were just isolated, these identical things happening, but they're not related? And that there's no coordination? I think that's a little naive to believe that, especially when we do have some evidence that there likely was a coordinated plot. We have Sidney Blumenthal feeding information directly to the Justice Department. We have the rotten Reverend Clinton's personal lawyer, Mr. Sussman, directly feeding General Counsel James Baker information. We have Alexandria Chalupa feeding directly the FBI, Michael Isikoff, and Fusion GPS, also working for the rotten Reverend Clinton, and likely the CIA, also funneling that information. Using Hillary's dirt to get FISA's and national security letters. And we also know about the massive leaking. Leaking information to the media to give them the story, then turning around, waiting after the story is written, and using that to justify all the illegal searches that they were conducting. And then, of course, the insurance policy. Uncle Bob, the executioner, Andrew Wiseass, and the Hillary donor posse, all close friends, associates, and donors to the rotten Reverend Clinton. You bet. You bet. They'll find it. They will find it. Keep watching. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See you guys. Bye.